It happened so fast that nobody saw it coming. One moment, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson stood near a sleek, new SUV inside a quiet car dealership. The next, the dealership's manager came rushing over, shouting words no one could fully catch, and then he shoved The Rock out the door with surprising force. Several startled employees froze in place, too shocked to react as the towering celebrity stumbled, steadied himself, and then blinked at the closed doors in disbelief. When anyone realized what had happened, The Rock stood outside, confusion spreading across his face. People nearby gasped. A customer on her way to the parking lot nearly dropped her car keys. There was no explanation, no warning, just the decisive, deliberate action of a manager who seemed strangely determined to get rid of him at all costs. Something in the air felt wrong. Why would anyone treat a well-known figure, especially someone as famously good-natured as The Rock, this way? It didn't add up. One or two sales associates looked at each other with uneasy glances, as if they knew more than they wanted to say. Meanwhile, The Rock stood in the lot, tension rippling off him, ready for answers. But that simple question, why, hung in the night air, unanswered, fueling a more profound mystery that was only beginning to unfold. The man who would soon find himself at the center of this intensifying mystery was Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, known worldwide for his formidable presence in the wrestling ring and on the silver screen. The Rock had arrived at this unremarkable dealership, tucked away in an industrial part of town, for nothing but superficial reasons. Publicly, word had spread that he was doing a routine promotional event as a brand ambassador for a reputable automobile line. However, the real reason behind this visit went deeper. For weeks, an unsettling rumor had circulated in certain Hollywood circles, whispering that The Rock's name had inexplicably popped up on someone's radar for all the wrong reasons. There were suggestions of shady deals, a sabotage campaign to discredit him, or an attempt to exploit his unstoppable image. At first, he had laughed it off. With all the successes he built over the years, bizarre rumors would practically stand at fare. But this time, the murmur wasn't drifting away. If anything, it was growing more persistent, more insistent that something was waiting to snap when he let his guard down. In his mind, The Rock looked for signs of trouble. That was part of why he'd chosen to arrive in an understated rental car unaccompanied and unexpectedly early. No official fanfare, no entourage, a hands-on approach, as if this were just another day in his extraordinarily packed schedule. Except this wasn't just another day. He felt the prickle on the back of his neck, that unspoken alarm honed from years of navigating the complexities of the entertainment industry. Upon entering the showroom, he noticed the usual excitement that ignited when people recognized him. But at this dealership, that excitement was oddly subdued. A few employees did double takes, but others stared for a heartbeat before turning away with forced indifference or thinly veiled discomfort. It was unusual. His celebrity status was met with open smiles and enthusiastic greetings in most places. Here, there was an undeniable vibe of tension. He offered a friendly wave to a timid sales associate who couldn't quite manage a hello, then examined a glossy SUV on display. No one approached him to ask if he needed help, though he'd arrived to discuss a partnership. The manager, who would typically be the first to greet a high-profile guest, remained conspicuously absent. A mild note of uncertainty flared inside him. The subtle snubs and lingering stares revealed that something behind the scenes was amiss. A few moments later, a staff member finally walked up and muttered a polite greeting through gritted teeth. It was a half-hearted welcome, more like a reluctant obligation. The Rock responded with his signature megawatt smile, attempting to diffuse the tension in the air. However, the staff member merely offered a non-committal nod before shuffling away. This was beyond mere awkwardness. It felt orchestrated, as if the entire dealership had been keyed to respond in a particular manner. Where was the manager who should have rolled out the red carpet for a star of his magnitude? Why was there such a current of hostility swirling behind every forced grin? He didn't have answers yet, but the disquiet was undeniable. One small clue after another started accumulating, pointing towards something more significant than a frosty reception. Still, The Rock told himself to keep calm and see it through. Little did he know, This strange undercurrent was about to yank him deeper into a situation threatening to topple even a seemingly unstoppable figure. Ron Delgado, ran this modest car dealership with the strictness of a military camp, his way or the highway. He was the kind of manager who watched numbers more than he watched people. This leader believed quotas were more important than courtesy. What most of the staff found even more surprising was how little he cared about the world outside his dealership's walls. Pop culture, celebrity gossip, or even significant sports events rarely registered on his radar. He prided himself on living an uncluttered life, which ironically left him clueless about many standard cultural references, including who The Rock was, in any absolute sense. Ron's world revolved around daily targets and periodic bonus checks inside the dealership's small office. He had little patience for distractions. He maintained a large corkboard pinned with color-coded notes that tracked sales performance, overdue paperwork, and upcoming inventories. On the floor, he demanded that his sales team stick to the script, greet the customer politely, push the most profitable package, and close the deal. Any deviation was scolded with a half-joking "stay in your lane," which, over time, began to lose its humor. For Ron, being the manager wasn't about building relationships or wooing customers, but ensuring the monthly numbers stayed in the black. That approach had come with some success. His branch consistently turned a profit. But it also built resentment among employees who felt stifled. Rumors were swirling that Ron had once worked for a more upscale dealership in a big city, only to be let go for aggressive behaviors that never made it onto his resume. While no one had proof, the staff wondered if those rumored outbursts explained his hair-trigger temper and controlling leadership style. When The Rock appeared unannounced that evening, Ron saw only an intruder who looked, and this part, he would admit, obnoxiously large. He didn't process the broad smile or the relaxed charm. In his eyes, a man of The Rock's stature was suspicious, especially given the rumor that an unknown investor might be prowling dealerships to scalp prospective takeovers. To Ron, The Rock was just some big guy snooping around without an appointment. He believed removing any threat as quickly as possible was his job. What fueled Ron's hostility, however, wasn't simply ignorance. Over the last few months, corporate has sent hints that the dealership might close if sales don't improve. Tension had soared. Ron feared that one misstep or scandal could ruin everything. So he'd begun projecting his paranoia onto any perceived trespasser, anyone who looked like they might cause trouble or catch corporate's attention badly. When he saw The Rock that night, wearing street clothes and poking around the most expensive model in the showroom, Ron's immediate reaction was to protect what he believed was his territory. He didn't see a celebrity or a potential ally. He saw a threat that might blow his carefully managed sales approach wide open. The moment he spotted employees whispering and pointing toward the big man near the SUV, Ron's pulse spiked. He felt cornered, as though everything he'd worked to maintain was one odd confrontation away from falling apart. That mixture of stress, ignorance, and misplaced aggression had led to the impulsive act of physically kicking The Rock out. This action stunned every observer, setting off a chain reaction Ron couldn't have predicted. But in Ron's mind, he was the one defending his livelihood. That The Rock happened to be a famous star was irrelevant. He had no idea who he had just thrown out, and in his narrow worldview, that didn't matter. All that mattered was protecting the dealership, his dealership, from whatever storm he imagined was brewing. In the immediate aftermath of the explosive altercation, the dealership employees scurried about with wide eyes and hushed voices. Outside, The Rock stood near the entrance, fists clenched in a subconscious show of tension. Though he had faced countless challenges, everything from rowdy wrestling crowds to punishing movie stunts, something about this abrupt confrontation felt strangely personal. It made no sense that a simple manager of all people would explode into such a fit of aggression. A few passers-by had witnessed the scene from a distance. They lingered in the parking lot, uncertain whether to approach or keep their distance. One young salesperson quietly opened the front door and slipped out, carrying The Rock's jacket, which had been left inside during the chaos. "Look, I'm so sorry," the salesperson whispered. "He's been on edge for weeks. Please, I don't even think he knows who you are. The Rock gave a respectful nod, accepting the jacket but asking no further questions for the moment. Inside, Ron fumed at the nerve of a giant stranger poking around the dealership at closing time. He paced behind the glass, barking instructions at his staff. They responded in near silence, afraid to say anything that might set him off again. Yet while everyone obeyed, they also passed uneasy glances among themselves. They all sensed something bigger was at play. Ron's reaction had been over the top, not just a product of stress. And that's when small, unsettling details began to surface. One of the associates recalled that a well-dressed man in a dark suit had visited the dealership earlier in the day, asking pointed questions about the manager's track record. He left behind a card that read only Foresight Innovations, a name no one recognized. Another employee mentioned receiving an odd phone call late last week, a gravelly voice asking if any large visitors had come by. The associate assumed it was a prank then, but it no longer seemed so harmless in light of this evening's events. Outside, The Rock tried to piece together the puzzle. He had initially come under the premise of meeting the manager for a potential partnership or event, something that had been floated to him, vaguely, by a third party. But the invitation had come through channels he didn't entirely trust. It was more rumor than official proposal. Yet curiosity and a desire to see if this small dealership had something unique to offer had led him here. Now, that same curiosity warned him not to walk away so easily. As the night's chill set in, The Rock studied the reflection of the lighted signage on the glass doors. He couldn't shake the feeling that this was not just about a hot-headed manager. Something about the earlier phone calls, the secretive visitor, and the tension in the place suggested a bigger scheme. Perhaps a competitor was playing dirty, or an investor wanted to drive down the dealership's value to buy it cheaply. In any case, the abrupt assault felt like step one in a much larger plot. He decided then and there that he needed to stay on this trail. Over the years, The Rock had learned that sometimes the strangest incidents led to essential truths. If someone was trying to manipulate or trap him in a scandal, the last thing he'd do was let them off the hook. With a steadying breath, he opened the glass door again, prepared to see exactly how deep this rabbit hole went. The staff's uneasy eyes followed him, and Ron's scowl turned colder than ever. Little did anyone realize that this confrontation was only the beginning. As fresh questions piled up, a tangled web of motives and hidden agendas waited to be revealed. Before we dive further into this unfolding mystery, we have a special request. Our dream is to reach 500 subscribers, and we can't do it without your support. If you've enjoyed the twists, turns, and tension, please consider subscribing to our channel. Every bit of help counts in making our goal a reality. We'd also love to hear your thoughts on the story so far. Why do you think Ron acted out so violently? What deeper motive could someone have for pushing The Rock into this bizarre scenario? And could Foresight Innovations be a real threat or another misdirection in a tangled plot? Feel free to drop your theories and opinions. Whether you suspect corporate sabotage, secret grudges, or something else, your ideas might uncover the missing piece we're all looking for. Once again, please subscribe and share. Let's reach that 500 subscriber milestone together. Okay, let's return to the story, where the stakes increase daily. Returning to the dealership's showroom felt surreal after what had just happened. However, The Rock walked through the doors with the same commanding presence that once electrified wrestling arenas. The staff parted like water at the sight of him. Nobody dared step in his way, especially not after the manager's outrageous move. Most of the salespeople avoided eye contact, clearly conflicted between fear of Ron's wrath and the embarrassment they felt over the treatment of a celebrity, albeit one the manager inexplicably failed to recognize. Behind a tall counter, a few employees bunched together, whispering. One bolder individual, a senior salesperson, finally stepped forward. "I am sorry," she said softly. "Ron's been under much pressure. None of us expected him to snap." Her words seemed genuine yet laced with an underlying worry that things would only worsen. The Rock studied her face, searching for answers. "Trust me, I've seen plenty of stress, but this felt like something else," he said, keeping his tone calm but firm. "Has there been any sign? Any odd behavior leading up to tonight? The salesperson shifted uncomfortably. Hard to say exactly. We get calls from corporate about possible layoffs, rumors of someone wanting to buy this place or shut it down altogether. Ron's always taken it personally, but lately, it's like he's convinced an outsider is going to wreck his reputation. He's just paranoid. A few feet away, Ron hovered near a desk piled with paperwork, glaring at the Rock, but not daring to provoke him again. The tension in the room was palpable, as the one sudden move could trigger another eruption. Meanwhile, the faint hum of the building's air conditioning underscored the anxious silence. Stepping away from the group, the Rock approached Ron with measured caution. He didn't want to spark another confrontation, but needed clarity. "I'm not here to cause trouble," he said, voice level. "I came because I heard rumors of an event or a partnership. Someone told me your dealership had something interesting to offer." Ron's lips pressed into a thin line. For a long moment, it looked like he might lash out again. But then he exhaled sharply and muttered, "I don't know what you're talking about." Although the manager's tone suggested hostility, his eyes darted sideways, hinting that he might know more than he let on. Over by the waiting area, a disgruntled customer cleared his throat, likely fed up with waiting for service. The Rock stole a glance, realizing how bizarre the situation must seem to outside observers. This was no ordinary place of business anymore. It had become a stage for hidden agendas and unspoken tensions. From behind a partition, another employee stepped forward with a clipboard full of documents. "Ron, these forms need your signature," she mumbled. The manager glared at the Rock before begrudgingly moving to a far corner of the showroom. In his wake, the atmosphere deflated slightly, tension ebbing just enough for everyone to breathe again. A question gnawed at the Rock's mind. Who had sent him that tip to come here? The message had been vague, suggesting a significant opportunity for collaboration. However, it provided no actual details, just an address and a time. If corporate drama and paranoia were fueling Ron's actions, that still didn't explain the strange calls, the mysterious visitor asking questions, or the name Foresight Innovations. The more the Rock looked around, the more he suspected he was dealing with more than a stressed manager. The next move was clear. He had to find real answers from the employees who seemed frightened into silence, or Ron himself, once his defensive guard cracked. The Rock had navigated Hollywood negotiations, brand contracts, and the intricacies of significant businesses before, but this situation felt different. It was personal, raw, and shrouded by a tension that no public relations handbook could address. From here on out, the search for truth would only intensify, pushing the Rock and everyone in this dealership closer to an explosive reckoning none saw coming. The night dragged on, yet the Rock was unwilling to leave the dealership without answers. At the same time, Ron kept a wary distance, signing papers, glaring occasionally. Most of the employees scattered, unsure how to treat that unexpected celebrity guest. Amid this tense standoff, the Rock realized he was at a crossroads. Should he walk away from a hostile environment or dig deeper into the strange events unfolding before him? A complicated swirl of emotions coursed through him. Growing up, he had faced adversity in many forms: financial struggles, career upheavals, and even betrayals in Hollywood. Yet this was different. Something about Ron's explosive outburst, the unknown tip that drew him here, and the suspicious mention of Foresight Innovations all hinted at a larger conspiracy. He couldn't help but feel that someone somewhere wanted him to play a pawn in a game he didn't yet understand. Seeking clarity, the Rock gravitated toward the break room in the rear of the dealership, hoping for a moment of quiet. At first, it appeared empty, just a tiny table and mismatched chairs under a fluorescent light. But as he eased inside, he noticed a younger employee sitting in the corner, biting her nails and scrolling anxiously through messages on her phone. She froze when she spotted him, then offered a nervous smile. I'm sorry about what happened," she mumbled. Nobody here understands why Ron lost his temper like that, except, her eyes flickered toward the door as if someone might be listening in. "Except what?" The Rock prodded gently. He could sense she wanted to share something. After a hesitant pause, the employee sighed. There's a rumor going around that a major investor is eyeing the dealership. If things go south, Ron might be out of a job. He's been paranoid for weeks, talking about shady figures who want to shut him down. I've overheard calls where he demands answers, but no one ever responds on the other end. The Rock's gut told him this was crucial. And what about Foresight Innovations? Have you heard that name before? She nodded. There's a folder in Ron's office labeled FIPROGTST, but I've never seen inside. I'm guessing it's some deal gone wrong. Whatever it is, he's terrified. He thinks this place could close any day now. That was enough to set his mind racing. Could Ron's desperation be fueled by blackmail or threats from this mysterious group? Was the Rock lured here to force a public spectacle, maybe to damage the dealership's reputation or push Ron over the edge? The puzzle pieces were coming together, but the picture remained incomplete. A clatter in the hallway made them both jump. The employee whispered, "I've got to go," before slipping out. Left alone, the Rock leaned against the wall, absorbing this new information. Uncertainty tugged at him. Was it right to continue digging? He had a successful career. Did he need to risk a bigger scandal? Yet he couldn't walk away. Not when good people were caught in the crosshairs of corporate greed or hidden agendas. The Rock inhaled a steadying breath, summoning his inner resolve. He knew that discovering the truth was the only way to protect himself and, potentially, everyone at the dealership. Stepping back into the corridor, he saw Ron hurrying into his office. The manager was clutching a slim folder to his chest. It was likely the FIPROGECT file. The Rock felt a familiar surge of determination as the door slammed shut behind him. If he wanted answers, he would need that folder. The echo of Ron's office door reverberated through the hallway as though daring the Rock to follow. The moon had fully risen outside the showroom windows, casting long beams of pale light across the pavement. The remaining staff lingered at their desks, uneasy and exhausted, but hesitant to leave while their manager still prowled. Each of them sensed that something big was about to go down. Gathering his courage, the Rock approached the office. He could hear Ron's agitated voice from within, speaking to someone over the phone. Words like buyout, leverage, and deadline cut through the muffled barrier of the door. He rapped his knuckles on the frame once, twice. When Ron didn't respond, the Rock swung the door open anyway. Ron snapped his head up, eyes wild with anger. "This isn't your business," he snarled, slamming the phone onto the receiver. "I told you to leave. I'm not leaving until I know what's going on." The Rock replied, voice steady. His gaze flicked to the folder on Ron's desk, the words FIPROGECT, just visible on the label. Ron tried to shield the folder with his arm, but his panicked expression betrayed him. "You're just a meddling fool who doesn't belong here," he spat. "Why can't you mind your own business?" "I might ask you the same question," the Rock shot back. "Why did you assault me? Is someone forcing your hand?" He took a careful step closer, maintaining eye contact. The tension in the small office was suffocating. Ron lunged for the folder without warning, yanking it off the desk. "You want to see this?" he barked. "Fine. You have no idea what pressure feels like, Mr. Hotshot Celebrity." He opened the folder with trembling hands, revealing pages filled with corporate jargon, charts, and ominous figures. In bold letters across the top of one page, the Rock read, "Foresight Innovations, Delinquent Account and Termination Forecast." His eyes narrowed. What exactly are they threatening? Ron's face was pale, a fine sheen of sweat across his brow. "They're forcing a buyout, or we lose everything. The dealership, my job, the entire staff." He swallowed hard, voice cracking with desperation. "They said if I don't cooperate, if I don't stir up something big enough to make headlines, they'll ruin me. I was supposed to provoke you. They told me you'd come, but I had no clue you were so famous. They just said you were an influential figure." Shock tightened in the Rock's chest. "So it was all orchestrated. They lured me here, expecting a scandal that would tank this place," he said quietly. "But why?" Ron gestured at a line of text, a planned development project that required the land under the dealership. Once established, a new structure, part office park, part entertainment complex, would be worth millions. Foresight Innovations needed to remove the dealership and manipulate public perception to ensure no legal obstacles remained. They want to push you into some confrontation. Ron added, voice strained. A lawsuit or negative press would bury the dealership's value. Then they'd swoop in. They told me if I didn't help, they'd bury me first. The Rock's jaw clenched, anger and pity warring in his expression. He could see how Ron's desperation had twisted his judgment, leading him to lash out. So you were ready to sacrifice your own integrity to save yourself? Ron flinched. I panicked. I'm not proud of it. Outside the office, footsteps approached. Several employees peered in, worried and curious. Realizing they were no longer hidden, Ron slammed the folder shut. The Rock raised a hand. They deserve to know the truth, he said to Ron, then faced the onlookers. Your manager got tangled in a bad deal. He's being coerced, threatened, and pressured to force me into a scandal. Gasps rippled among the staff. A senior salesperson shook her head in disbelief while others shifted uneasily. Ron shrank back, the reality of his actions weighing on him. I'm sorry, he managed, his voice cracking with shame. I was just so desperate. The Rock turned his focus to the group. Desperation or not, we have to stop this. Foresight Innovations won't hesitate to harm anyone they consider an obstacle. Right now, you're all at risk unless we stand together. The tension bristling through the dealership finally snapped with the ugly truth in the open. Faces hardened in resolve rather than fear. The Rock sensed the battle lines had been drawn. Foresight Innovations thought they could manipulate him for a cheap headline. They picked the wrong target. Ron looked down at the folder in his hands, shoulders slumped. So what do we do now? The Rock stepped forward, determination blazing in his eyes. We make sure their plan fails, and we show them that no amount of corporate muscle or coercion can bring us down. The staff exchanged nods, a spark of unity forming. There was a faint sense of hope for the first time since this nightmare began. But they all knew the confrontation would unfold, a showdown that would test everyone's courage and resolve. And for The Rock, it would prove whether his unstoppable spirit lived up to its reputation when pitted against shadowy, powerful forces lurking behind a corporate mask. With the truth laid out for everyone, a sense of unity replaced the fear gripping the dealership. The Rock stood among the employees, the incriminating FIPROGCT folder in hand, and exchanged determined glances with Ron. Though no formal plan existed, they all knew Foresight Innovations must be stopped. The following day, as sunlight broke across the dealership lot, The Rock and Ron met before opening hours. They agreed to call an emergency meeting for the entire staff. No more secrets. One by one, employees arrived, eyes heavy with exhaustion, but fired up by this common cause. The meeting unfolded in the same large showroom where The Rock had first been thrown out, except now, the atmosphere crackled with an undercurrent of resolve. Ron cleared his throat, looking uncharacteristically vulnerable. I owe each of you an apology, he began, voice shaking. I let my fear turn me into a tyrant. I took Foresight's threats to mean we had no choice. But that was a lie. We do have a choice, if we stand together. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some employees still bore resentment, but seeing Ron's genuine remorse, they softened. The Rock stepped forward, projecting the calm confidence he was famous for. My presence here was meant to create a scandal. They wanted me to lash out or press charges. But if we're open about what happened, and about Foresight's coercion, we can keep control of the story. They can't blackmail us with negative headlines if we shed light on everything first. He held up the folder, flipping through the pages. There's enough evidence here, emails, financial projections, notices of threatened lawsuits, to make their plan clear. If we go public with this, the media pressure will be on them, not on the dealership. A few staff members exchanged uncertain glances. Won't that just bring Foresight's wrath down harder? Someone asked. Ron nodded, swallowing a lump in his throat. It might, but if we don't fight back, they'll shut us down regardless. At least this way, we have a chance to expose them. Maybe corporate will see we're being threatened. Encouraged by the idea, A senior salesperson stepped forward with her hands clasped. "We can coordinate with local news outlets," she suggested, trembling slightly. "If they hear The Rock is involved, they'll jump on the story. We can frame it as a small business standing up to corporate bullying." The Rock gave a firm nod. "Exactly. That's how we fight this." With a plan formed, they spent several hours organizing their information, scanning documents, and preparing a straightforward narrative. Now channeling his managerial zeal into something positive, Ron instructed employees to remain professional and calm when reporters arrived. The tension that once plagued this place transformed into focused determination. Sure enough, local reporters descended on the dealership, drawn by the promise of a significant story involving The Rock. Cameras rolled, pens scribbled. At first, the journalists seemed uncertain. Usually, a star would try to avoid messy controversies, not step into them. But as soon as The Rock and the staff revealed the folder's damning contents, doubts dissolved. To cap it all off, The Rock delivered a simple, powerful statement on camera. "No one, no corporation, no bully, gets to push honest people around. We stand together, and we speak the truth. That's how we win." By midday, the story had spread online. Foresight Innovations, unprepared for such a sudden spotlight, scrambled to explain or deny the accusations. Meanwhile, the dealership staff received an outpouring of support from the local community. Customers called to voice solidarity and neighbors dropped by with encouraging words. Ron, drained, but visibly relieved, shook The Rock's hand before everyone. "Thank you," he said quietly. Though they had been foes just hours before, they were now allies, bound by a crisis that demanded integrity over fear. The future remained uncertain. Foresight Innovations might still strike back, but the immediate threat had been turned on its head for now. No longer an unwitting pawn in a corporate scheme, The Rock had used his fame to bring the dealership and its workers out of the shadows. And in doing so, he reminded them of a simple truth. Sometimes, standing together is the only way to stand firm. Thank you for joining us on this wild ride. We hope you enjoyed discovering how The Rock confronted a car dealership manager's outburst, untangled a shady corporate plot, and found unity in adversity. If you've been captivated by the drama, mystery, and suspense, please consider subscribing to our channel or mailing list. Your support helps us reach our milestone of 500 subscribers and continue bringing you more thrilling, long-form stories. What do you think? Did Foresight Innovations finally retreat for good, or do they have another card up their sleeve? Will The Rock's intervention spark a broader movement against corporate bullying? Share your thoughts, questions, and theories in the comments or via email. Once again, thank you for reading, and we look forward to bringing you more unexpected adventures soon.